Anos was a goat demon lord who sacrificed himself to save the world, but is reborn 2,000 years later. However, since no one remembers him, he joins a demon academy and starts farming aura. Now every chick on campus wants a taste of his power and is willing to bend over backwards to please him. This story starts on Anos' first day in the Demon King's academy. After helping a girl named Misha with her acceptance letter, they both decide to walk in together but end up running into Sepez, a worthless but powerful noble who immediately tries to intimidate them with his royal status. At first, Anos ignores him, but this bruises Sepez's ego, so he tries to attack them with a god-level flame spell, but Anos casually blows it out like a birthday candle. Later, when he enters the academy arena for a combat test, shortly after this, Sepez shows up wearing a mythical demonic armor and also pulls out a flaming sword used during the Age of the Gods. Upon seeing this, all the students get worried that Anos is about to become a human kebab because no one has ever survived an attack from the flaming sword. However, the moment he charges into attack, Anos casually blows out to flames again, causing everyone to freeze in shock. After Anos explains that he has no advantage, despite dressing up like a medieval cyborg, Sepez still insists that he can take him down. So Anos pops his entire body just by channeling magic through his heartbeat. Despite this, Sepez continues yapping about how he only has an advantage because he uses compulsion magic. So Anos promises to make him give up without it. With a snap of his fingers, he reduces Sepez to a bloody splatter and resurrects him in an instant like it's nothing. While the other students wonder how a nobody like Anos can use resurrection magic, Sepez checks to make sure his body is really intact. Anos then creates a contract to seal their agreement and continues blowing him up and resurrecting him until Sepez admits defeat. Soon after this, he and Misha get to the magic assessment room, and after she places her hand on the crystal and learns that her magic level is high, Anos does the same, but the crystal shatters from just a fraction of his powers. Afterwards, he offers to treat her to dinner back at his place, and after she agrees to it, he uses teleportation magic to return home, which surprises her because teleportation magic was forgotten centuries ago. Once inside, his mom starts gushing over how amazing he is, and after his dad also shows up to join them for dinner, he puts up with their constant teasing for a while before deciding to walk Misha home. However, on the way there, they get ambushed by Lurg, Sepez's older brother, who wants to teach Anos a lesson for messing with royalty. He starts by literally smoking his own brother for bringing shame to their family before turning to Anos, as he and all his wizard knights prepare to attack Anos with a powerful spell. His overwhelming abilities cause them to lose control of their magic and blow themselves up. Luckily, Lurg survives, so Anos offers him a second chance to act right before resurrecting Sepez as an overpowered zombie. Lurg still refuses to change his ways until Sepez gets close enough and turns him into an undead human barbecue as well. Anos then destroys the arena they summoned and restores their bodies, before saying that he is the great demon lord. In class the next day, he once again introduces himself as the demon lord, but everyone stares like he is a lunatic, so he grabs a seat beside Misha and asks why. She then explains that the symbol on every uniform is used to classify each student's magic ability, and since he is on a level no one has ever seen before, she then explains that the symbol on every uniform is used to classify each student's magic ability, and since he is on a level no one has ever seen before, they'd all think he is a misfit. After she explains how being a misfit means he is not even related to the great demon lord, Anos gets confused since he is the demon lord they keep talking about, so he takes a moment to think before telling Misha to say the demon lord's name. She whispers the name Avos to Livia, surprising Anos, who immediately realizes that this Avos guy has been posing as him for centuries. 2,000 years ago, humanity's hero, Kanon, finally faced Anos in his throne room for what was meant to be the deciding battle over the fate of humanity and mankind. However, Kanon got shocked when Anos suddenly admitted to being tired of the endless bloodshed and offered to give his life to secure peace for all the realms. Naturally, Kanon refused to believe that the feared demon lord could even conceive such a plan. But after Anos explained how he was going to separate all the realms for good, Kanon realized that he had truly grown tired of war and agreed to support him. The next moment, Anos expelled his life force to combine it with their magic for the divine separation, and after Kanon stabbed him to extract the rest of his energy, they'd promised to become friends in the next life. 2,000 years later, Anos opened his eyes again to a new world and immediately told his parents his name to avoid something stupid like the name your parents gave you. Back in class, he tries to figure out how his name was changed in the history books, but the teacher suddenly walks in and instructs them to choose groups because of a team competition she has planned for the following week. She then shows them a magic circle passed down 2,000 years ago from the demon lord for team missions, before calling for powerful magic users to nominate themselves as group leaders. However, when Anos nominates himself, she gets repulsed and says only pure blood royals are strong enough to lead a team. Anos then offers to prove that he is just as powerful, and after stepping to the front and creating a contract with her, he rewrites the entire magic circle, once again leaving them in a state of shock, because literally no one is strong enough to change the Demon Lord's circle. Several minutes later, everyone in class scatters into their chosen groups, but Misha ends up being the only one with Anos' sober sister. An overpowered noble named Sasha shows up to tease them and asks Anos why he would become friends with someone who doesn't even qualify as human or demon. When he calls her slow for thinking that Misha has less worth than a pure breed royal like her, she loses it and activates her Eyes of Destruction to intimidate him, but he counters with his version of the exact same skill. After almost losing bladder control, she leaves, so Anos asks Misha why she gets treated poorly if they are actually sisters. But Misha only tells him that it was a family decision. Hours later, they both start heading home, but Sasha shows up to challenge Anos with the upcoming team competition. After explaining that she will answer to his every wish if he wins and saying that he has to become her slave if he loses, she asks for a contract to make sure he can't back out. So he asks Misha to do the honors. On the day of the contest a week later, Sasha creates a castle with her team and immediately cooks up a strategy while Anos and Misha try to think of a way to catch them off guard. The next moment, Sasha sees that Misha created 3 castles, so she orders everyone on the team to focus on destroying them until they find the real one. However, as they get ready to attack, one of them spots Anos casually walking towards their castle and informs Sasha, who then tells them not to panic because he is obviously just overestimating his abilities. On getting to the castle, Anos tries to get a hold of it, but the barrier Sasha erected stops his magic, so he casually grabs the castle with his bare hand and yeets them into space. After catching the castle like a beach ball, he proceeds to twirl it around before tossing them across the forest, completely ignoring the laws of gravity just to aura farm. Despite this, Sasha refuses to give up and combines her powers with everyone on the team to create a massive cannon blaster. As soon as their combined powers reach breaking point, she fires off a fireball powerful enough to delete an entire country. But Anos counters with a basic attack spell that neutralizes the fireball and completely obliterates her entire team. Left with no other option, Sasha admits defeat, and after Misha catches up to them, she reluctantly keeps her word by joining the group. Later on, Anos takes them both back home for dinner, and his parents lose it again as soon as he introduces Sasha. After putting up with the usual interrogation about their relationship, he decides to walk the girls back home and gets excited to see them holding hands like actual sisters. On getting to their family mansion, Misha heads inside, but Sasha stays back to thank him and suddenly tells him to come closer. He immediately refuses and says he doesn't take orders from hoes.
Come on, man.
So she begs him before surprising him with a kiss. Minutes before this, Sasha asked Misha if she liked Anos, and after admitting to it, she asked Sasha the exact same question. But Sasha denied having any feelings for him and said she was only excited to finally be around someone that doesn't find her Eyes of Destruction threatening. She then recalled that Misha was actually the first to accept her eyes, and after apologizing for her recent cruelty, they shared a passionate hug. In class several days later, Sasha takes a seat beside him and asks if her former teammates can join, but he tells her not to bother inviting them because he already said no when they approached him earlier. After Sasha explains that they need more numbers for the upcoming test, Amelia tells them all to settle down because one of the 7 demon emperors will be holding the first lecture. Upon hearing this, Anos asks Sasha for the details, and after she explains the emperors are direct subordinates of the great demon lord, he recalls creating them and feels optimistic as they should all remember him. The next moment, Amelia warns him to act accordingly, but when Lord Avis finally shows up, Anos casually calls out to him like they are college besties. He then claims to be his master from 2,000 years ago, but Avis explains that he has actually lost his memories from back then, so Anos suddenly grabs him by the face to restore it. Upon seeing this, Amelia and the entire class freeze in horror, expecting Avis to send him to the Grim Reaper. But Avis asks to have a chat later on and proceeds to give the lecture like nothing happened. Afterwards, they meet in the hallway, and after admitting that his ability to rewind time to 2,000 years proves that he knows something, Avis still refuses to believe that Anos is the actual demon lord. However, he decides to remain neutral because whoever erased his memories likely altered them as well. After he leaves, Amelia shows up to give Misha's crest to Anos and explains that she dropped it, so he takes it to her in the courtyard and notices Sasha getting pissed at her former teammates for talking bad about Misha. Days later, the entire class shows up to an ancient castle, and after Amelia explains that they are competing for points by collecting powerful artifacts, Sasha tries to get Anos and Misha to move faster, since they are already at a disadvantage with numbers. However, Anos tells her not to worry because he can get the Demon Lord's scepter from the sacred altar. Sasha then tells him to stop messing around, because even the strongest teachers have never been able to access the altar. After reminding her that the castle belongs to the great Demon Lord, who also happens to be him, he leads them to a secret passageway and casually walks through the reinforced brick walls. Moments later, they get to the altar, and while Sasha excitedly rushes over to the scepter, Anos takes Misha into his closet, filled with magical artifacts, because she asked for help getting Sasha a birthday present. After she picks a robe imbued with ancient and extremely powerful magic, they head back to the altar, and after taking the robe and thanking her, Sasha asks for privacy to try it on. So Anos returns to the closet. Just a few minutes later, he returns and finds Misha on the floor with a dagger in her chest while Sasha stands over her laughing like a maniac and calling her stupid for thinking she would ever accept a soulless peasant as her sister. When Anos asks why she is doing this, she starts cussing him out as well and says she only put up with them to win the competition, as she further claims to hate Misha's guts and creates a magic circle above the dagger to stop Anos from coming any closer. He calls Cap and tells her to stop lying, because she would have chopped Misha into bits if she really wanted to unalive her. This catches Sasha off guard, so she tries to take off, but he heals Misha and grabs her arm before asking for the real reason behind her actions. However, Misha starts begging him to let go, and after he does, Sasha takes off. So he asks Misha for an explanation, because there has to be a reason why she keeps putting up with the constant betrayal. Misha then tells him that she will disappear the moment the clock strikes 12, because she was never meant to exist. After she explains that Ivis separated her from Sasha at birth, Anos recalls how Ivis crafted that spell with the goal of creating a stronger race of demons. However, the fusion spell it required would eventually cause clones to merge back into the original source, which is what will happen to Misha by midnight. She then tells him not to worry because she already accepted her fate a long time ago. The fact that people always treated her like a living doll and avoided any kind of conversation made it easy for her to accept the merge, since it would make Sasha a lot stronger. However, as she starts thanking him for being the only one who talks to her, he hugs her tightly and says he doesn't understand the word impossible. After he also promises to grant any wish she has, she asks for a chance to make up with Sasha. Moments later, he stops her from leaving the castle, and when she asks why, Misha asks if she truly hates her. All of a sudden, Sasha asks Anos for another duel and promises to answer Misha if he manages to control her magic circle, while he has to obey her every command if she wins. After asking if she still hasn't come to terms with the fact that he is way stronger than her, he offers to keep his eyes closed while she creates the magic circle. She then proceeds to spend several minutes twirling like a ballerina on crack until both circles finally get imprinted on the ground. However, as soon as she gives him permission to look, he recognizes the spell she used in creating them and asks if she intentionally set herself up for failure because he can easily control it. When she still asks for proof, he completely overwrites both circles but still leaves her original spell intact. So she and Misha get on both sides for their last face-off. While staring into her eyes, Sasha thinks back to how miserable she was because of her powers, and how Misha basically loved her until she felt comfortable enough to have a life again. At some point, she started to realize that no one ever bothered to acknowledge Misha's existence, so she became obsessed with finding a way out of the merge just to give her a normal life. The next moment, Sasha combines the circles and activates a counter spell to merge into Misha instead of the original plan, so she can finally get to experience being a whole person. She then holds Misha's face and claims to have hated her since they were little, but when the spell suddenly starts falling apart, she drops to her knees and begs Misha to hate her, because it won't work if she still feels love in her heart. Upon hearing this, Misha embraces her and says she has accepted her fate before thanking Anos for giving her the chance she asked for. The next moment, Sasha starts begging Anos to find a way to save Misha, but he tells her not to worry, because he already plans to do the impossible by saving both of them. Naturally, they get confused and ask how he can possibly pull it off, so he explains his plan to rewind time to the point they got separated so they can both merge with their duplicates and continue living as complete beings. Despite this, they both struggle to believe it's actually possible, so he creates an immensely powerful magic circle and further explains the spell he plans to use before saying that they both need to believe in him for it to work. Just as they finally decide to trust him, he gets stabbed through the heart by Ivis, who then says the girls are meant to serve as hosts for the Demon Lord. The next moment, Anos yanks the sword out and says he needs a lot more to win before slamming him into the wall to focus on the spell. As soon as he activates it, they all end up in limbo, suspended between the timelines before the god of time, Ergo, shows up to punish Anos for breaking the rules. After rewinding time to resurrect Ivis, Ergo possesses him and immediately starts attacking. so Anos creates a barrier to protect the girls. However, Ergo slowly breaks through each one, so he tells the girls to remember their promise to believe in him before Ergo stabs right through his heart again. As the undead timekeeper starts celebrating, Anos grabs him by the shoulder and says even death can't keep him down for long. Upon hearing this, Ergo immediately runs as far away as possible to gain some distance and suddenly unleashes a time stop skill, hoping to keep them all frozen in place. After Anos completely ignores it and continues walking toward him, he loses it and tries every possible attack, but Anos blocks everyone while also releasing the girls from his spell. At that moment, the clock strikes 12, but instead of merging into one like it was planned, both of them start praying to Anos and end up merging with versions of themselves from the past. This causes Ergo to finally realize how cooked he is, but then Anos gets excited to make him pay and summons a sword known for its ability to erase anything from existence. Despite seeing this, Ergo charges in to attack him, so Anos slices right through his head and purges his soul from Ibis's body before wiping him out from existence. Minutes later, they return to the castle, and after getting revived, Ibis drops to his knees to apologize to Anos and explains that someone had been in control of his mind and body. Anos then restores his memories and tells him to play dead, so he can secretly investigate the other emperors and figure out who changed everything. Soon after this, Anos and the girls make it out of the castle, and after he picks up a letter Misha always carries around, she gets emotional and explains that she refused to open it after receiving it from her guardians because she was scared of losing her life. Sasha immediately grabs her and starts apologizing for all the mean things she said, so Anos gives them space to express themselves. Afterward, he places a ring on Misha's finger and explains that it's her birthday gift before also wishing Sasha a happy birthday and asking why she seems a lot softer than the girl that kissed him the other night. As soon as Misha asks what he is talking about, she explains that it was just a kiss between friends, but Anos continues teasing her about it. During one of the Great Wars, back when Anos was still the Demon Lord, an overpowered shapeshifter named Leonion single-handedly destroyed his entire army in seconds, so he ordered his right-hand man, Shin, to take care of it and promised to give him anything he wished for as a reward. After successfully defeating her, Shin asked for permission to reincarnate as his right-hand man in another life, but Anos reminded him that reincarnation was a weak point for him, which meant he would start over without any memories or skills from his previous life. Despite this, Shin still wanted it, so Anos granted his wish before Kanon showed up for another one of their epic duels. Back in current time, he just entered class with Misha and Sasha, who then express how happy she is to hear Amelia give them the perfect score for finding the Demon Lord's scepter. The next moment, Amelia walks in and informs them of a transfer student widely regarded as the greatest magic swordsman, before telling Anos and his band of peasants to act right when the student shows up. She then claims that the scepter was stolen before she could appraise it, and offers to give their group 70 marks, while the academy conducts an investigation. Sasha immediately refuses to accept it, but Amelia explains that there is nothing she can do about it. After another chick stands up to defend them, some worthless stagehand starts telling his buddies that they probably stole the scepter because they knew it was worthless. The next moment, Anos walks over to him and yanks the scepter out of a pocket dimension in his uniform, before telling Amelia to do a better job the next time she wants to set them up. After classes, the chick from earlier spots Anos in the hallway and rushes over to thank him for standing up to Amelia. When he asks if she is one of the Unitarians he keeps hearing about, she gets excited to explain her club's goal, but Sasha immediately stops her from getting too close. After apologizing, Misha explains that they only want to create a world where pure and half-breed demons can live together, so Anos decides to check out the club. Several minutes later, they arrive in a large compound filled with towers used for various clubs. But the moment Anos steps into the Unitarian club, all the girls present lose their minds and pass out, while he continues melting their brains with aura. Sasha decides to take a look around and almost passes out the moment she finds a book filled with drawings of his demon sausage. After explaining how they operate and dedicate their after-school hours to gooming with his pictures, Misha takes them to see a special sword gifted by her dad, who abandoned her at birth because she is a half-breed. She goes on to explain that her father's decision to keep the second half of the sword fueled her obsession with unity, before asking Anos for permission to serve as his subordinate. After giving it some thought, he agrees to it, but says they have to prove how committed they can be to his cause. Early the next day, they all get sent to the arena for a test of strength where they have to pull out demonic versions of Excalibur. As they all struggle to get even one out, two powerful demons named Gaios and Idol show up to fight with whoever manages to get a sword out. Just then, Anos shows up to tease Sasha about being too weak to pull a sword, and after she turns the table on him, since he also hasn't pulled any of the swords. He uses telekinesis to yank one out. Upon seeing this, Idol and Gaios challenge him to a duel, but then they all notice the exchange student Amelia, mentioned casually, waving around the most powerful sword in the arena. When Idol and Gaios decide to challenge him instead, Lei refuses, saying he is too bored to fight, but they get pissed and suddenly charge towards him. In a matter of seconds, they both get laid out while Lei barely breaks a sweat and decides to leave for the next class. In class a couple minutes later, he walks up to Anos and asks to join his group. But then Amelia reminds him that Anos is a misfit and explains how disrespectful it would be for a pure breed noble to work under him. Despite this, Lei insists on joining his group and says he would rather be bossed around by an obviously superior being. So Anos commends his spirit but says he has to earn the right to join them. After Lei agrees to do whatever it takes, Anos tells him to team up with Misha and her girls to take him down during the next team contest. Days later, they all meet up in a nearby forest for the contest. So Lei tells Misha and her girls to take it easy, as he is not usually the type to lead, but they all get surprised by this. So Misha asks why he goes easy on them despite knowing that they are half-breeds. He then explains how much he hates those terms and further claims to have long felt that the demon lord they have been taught about is a hoax. While they discuss attack strategies, Anos tells Sasha and Misha not to worry about Lei. So Sasha decides to take on Misha's girl squad, while Misha builds a castle to serve as their base. Shortly after this, Anos finds Lei and apologizes for the delay before asking why he has a dull sword instead of his real one. Lei then explains that he gave it to Misha before a giant earth golem suddenly appears and starts attacking Sasha. After realizing that he gave Misha's girls some of his magic, Anos commends Lei again and grabs a tree branch to use as a makeshift sword. While they both start fighting, Sasha and Misha get surrounded by Misha and her girls. But as they prepare to finish them off, Sasha reminds Misha of a powerful spell passed down in their family before activating the magic circle with her. The next moment, they both merge their strongest blasts into a flaming tornado that sends Misha and her girls flying across the forest. They then try to celebrate, but Anos and Lei start destroying the entire forest with their attacks and claim it won't be a problem since the forest has enough magical energy to fix itself. After a couple more minutes of unleashing enough power to destroy a nation and smiling through every slice, Anos finally overpowers Lei but still agrees to let him join the club. Lei then asks if they know each other, because he couldn't shake the feeling while fighting, so Anos tells him that they might have known each other from 2 millennia ago. Hours later, they all join Anos' parents for a feast, and when Misha asks if it's really okay for her to be present since she lost the contest, Anos gives her permission to join the club as well. He further explains that the skill she used during the contest makes her an extremely valuable asset, so she thanks him for the opportunity and promises to do her best. Right then, Isabella tells him that she has also been making an effort to improve herself by studying under Elio Ludao, one of the 7 demon emperors. Soon after this, Lei and Misha step outside for some fresh air, so Anos decides to keep an eye on them while Isabella shows Misha and Sasha what he looked like fresh out of the womb. After also explaining his insane growth spurt, she admits that having him was a scary experience because he almost got nerfed in the womb, but thankfully he survived and ended up becoming the overpowered charmer they all love. While they continue chatting, Lei apologizes to Misha for being a little selfish during the duel because they could have probably won if he helped them with the golem instead of giving all his attention to Anos. After saying that she is okay with it, Misha once again asks why he talks to her so casually, completely ignoring the fact that she is a half-demon, half-spirit hybrid. Upon hearing this, Lei explains that all he really cares about is his sword, and reminds her that he has never been one to judge a person by the status they were born into. When she suddenly asks him to join their Unitarian club, he promises to spend some time thinking about it before saying that she is very special because half-spirit, half-demon hybrids typically lose their lives after using any powerful spell. In class the next day, Amelia reminds them of the upcoming sword tournament and names Lei and Anos as the students chosen to represent their class. As soon as the class ends, they both step outside to talk about it, and after Anos says there is no way they are letting him compete without an ulterior motive, Misha shows up saying that one of the demon emperors is waiting to see him in the clubroom. Moments later, they walk into the clubroom and see Baron, who then drops to his knees in tears and tells Anos how long he has been waiting to see him. Anos gets surprised by this, since everyone else seems to have forgotten who he is. So Baron explains that his magic source could never forget the one that created it. He further explains how he woke up without any of his memories shortly after Anos sacrificed himself to separate the realms. Since he was trapped in another realm with little to no magic, he spent over a century getting strong enough to cross into the human realm. But when he finally made it through, another demon lord named Avos Stilhiva had already taken over. When he brings up the tournament and asks if he is really going to participate, Anos says he is not worried about whatever the royals have planned. but then Baron suggests dropping out because if he stops taking their bait, the fake demon lord might finally reveal himself. Later that day, Anos returns home to see that Misha has already made dinner with help from Isabella, so he joins them to eat and learns that Amelia showed up to wish him luck with the tournament. As he tries to figure out what she is probably planning, Isabella offers to throw another feast after he wins the tournament, but he tells her not to bother since he has not even decided to go yet. She then asks why and continues insisting that he goes until he says yes. The next moment, Misha holds up a spoon of food to his face, so he takes a bite and thanks her for making such an amazing meal. After eating, he offers to give her anything she wants as a reward, so she asks to spend the next day going out with him. The next day, he keeps his promise by showing up for their date, so she takes him to a special craft shop where she makes most of the snow globes being sold there. After Melissa welcomes them in and takes them to the workshop, Misha decides to create a snow globe from scratch to impress him, but he immediately decides to make an even better one. Moments later, Melissa walks in and immediately bolts towards their table because Anos just sculpted a globe that should take even a professional a couple of years to craft. She immediately offers to sell the entire shop just to buy it, but he refuses and explains that he already has plans for it before taking it and leaving with Misha. At a bench minutes later, he turns it into a ring and places it on her finger so she can look at it whenever she wants. All of a sudden, she gets emotional and says she can't do anything to repay him since he can literally do everything. But he tells her not to get her hopes up, because if she spends the next few years perfecting her creation magic, she might be able to rival his abilities. Upon hearing this, she gets excited to start training, but a cat cafe suddenly catches her attention, so she starts tweaking until he decides to take her inside. She then apologizes for derailing their date, but he tells her it's actually convenient because Ibis, who is currently running around in a cat's body, also happens to be in the cafe. Just then, he shows up to tell Anos that Emperor Baron is not actually behind the royals like they initially thought. Turns out there is someone else pulling the strings, but the only information he could find connected the anonymous puppet master to a local clinic. After telling him to continue investigating, Anos takes Misha to check out the clinic, but then Lei suddenly shows up and explains that his mum is receiving treatment inside. Anos then offers to cure her of whatever the sickness might be, but Lei treats it like a joke and thanks him for the offer before heading inside to see his transparent mum. The next day, the tournament finally begins, so Isabella shows up to wish him luck, but after almost telling him about a sword Guster was trying to get for him, she runs off. Avis then shows up to talk, so Anos heads outside with him and learns that Gaios and Idol are the ones pulling the strings. Avis also tells him that Lei's mum is suffering from spirit disease, an ultra-rare sickness that didn't exist back 2,000 years ago. Minutes later, a powerful royal swordsman named Krut walks into the arena for the first match, and the crowd loses it because he is actually the reigning champion. After Anos gets called out to fight him, all the royals start raging about how he shouldn't even get the chance to fight with Krut. Anos also starts having second thoughts because the fight is obviously some kind of trap, but then Isabella suddenly starts yelling about how her commoner son can also become a demon lord. The next moment, Guster finally shows up with an adamantium sword and tells him not to worry about the blood, so Anos decides to fight his way through any trap and jumps into the arena to face Krut. After promising to defeat him in 60 seconds, Anos starts evading every attack just to make fun of him and waits until his lungs start to give out before unleashing an attack of his own that leaves Guster leaking blood out of holes he didn't even know existed. As Anos starts heading back inside, Mrs. Girls continues singing his praises, while Amelia loses her mind and decides to make him pay for humiliating her brother. Minutes later, Misha shows up to the waiting room to continue telling Anos how amazing he was, so he reminds her that it's just the first round before they see that Lei also just won his first fight. When the announcer suddenly calls him a royalist, they both freeze in shock and wait until he returns to ask how he could switch sides so quickly. Lei then explains how the royals won him over with a lifetime supply of cash and the fancy life he has always dreamt of, but Misha still struggles to believe that he turned on them just for that. After turning to leave, Lei promises Anos a painful defeat, but Anos explains that he needs to be willing to risk everything just for a graze. The next moment, they turn on each other, and while Lei manages to graze on his arm, Anos nearly rips out his heart but spares him since they will still meet during the final match. As soon as Lei leaves, Anos tells Misha that he is being controlled by a death collar and explains that the sudden attack was just so he could scan the magic energy flowing through Lei's body. After clearing out the rest of his duels for the day, Anos meets up with the girls and his parents outside the arena to talk about how amazing he is. When Guster finally leaves to finish his work for the day, Anos decides to head out with Misha as well, so Isabella offers to hold onto his sword. Shortly after this, they both find Shila's room in the hospital, So Anos takes a closer look and realizes that she is half spirit, half demon like Misha. Misha then asks how she could possibly be Lei's mother since he is a pure breed. After saying that she is probably just the only mother figure in his life, he tries to figure out the cause of her condition, but she wakes up and calls his name, which surprises him. So he asks how she knows it. She then tells him about all the times Lei would talk about him, before also revealing that he was forced into submission by the royals because he couldn't afford her treatment. Anos immediately offers to heal her, but asks if she has any idea what causes her illness. So she reminds him that the life force of a spirit reduces if fewer people acknowledge their existence or culture. Since her traditions and culture have been long discarded, there was virtually nobody to fuel her life force as she gradually deteriorated until Lei got her into the hospital. After also telling Anos that Lei has been miserable for most of his life because no one could match him, she begs him to go all out during their duel. Upon hearing this, Anos decides to fix it by simply rewinding time and setting up more traditions to make sure enough people believe. However, he also decides to transfer some of Misha's life force, and when Shila tries to stop him, Misha tells her not to worry because she is ready to risk her life as long as they can free Lei from the royals. After Anos completes the spell, Misha starts transferring her life force, but then he suddenly senses someone with evil intent heading toward Isabella and the girls. As they all continue yapping about how good Anos was in the fight, Amelia suddenly shows up wearing a fake smile and tells Isabella that they just received new rules to hold onto every contestant's weapon. Isabella calmly explains that she can't give out the sword Anos entrusted into her care, but then Amelia starts trying to pull it away from her. After she manages to hold onto it, Amelia attacks her with a fireball. In an attempt to dodge, she ends up with a broken ankle, so the girls step in to protect her, but they also get blasted away. Despite this, they get back up and continue fighting back so Isabella can escape. But Amelia easily nursed their girl squad magic. However, even after her blasts start toasting them up, they get back up and start singing Anos' theme song. So Amelia decides to stop playing nice in attacks until they all start looking like premium steak. Just as she tries to give Isabella the same treatment, Anos finally shows up to protect her and paralyzes Amelia before healing Isabella and the girls. After asking for their names and promising to remember them forever, he takes Amelia to the arena and stabs her back before promising to stop if she admits that he is the demon lord and begs for mercy. She initially tries to refuse, but after he twists the blade further down her back, she starts singing like a broken record. But he still sends her to the Grim Reaper, only to resurrect her as a peasant so she can finally see what life feels like in the trenches. Back in the hospital, Lei suddenly presses a knife against Misha's neck, but after realizing what she is doing, he tells her to stop risking her life for him. She then insists that it's the least she can do, considering everything he has already been through. The next moment, she falls unconscious, and after he sets her down on a couch, Shila wakes up again to talk to him. He immediately promises to make sure she gets better, but she tells him to stop wasting his life trying to save her because she has already accepted her fate. After reminding him of the beautiful memories they already share, she passes out, so he heads out right before Anos returns. The next day, they both finally come face to face for the last duel of the tournament. As everyone starts cheering for the fight, they suddenly get forced to wear magic dampening bracelets, but only the one on Anos' wrist seems to work. At that moment, the Watch Owl tells him to basically sit still and let Lei win, because if he manages to win, the contract collar around Lei's magic source will clamp down, causing him to lose his life before his mom also gets pulled from life support. As soon as they clash swords, Lei notices that Anos has been barely affected by the magic dampening bracelet, but after Anos tells him not to worry about it, he takes a step back and cuts himself to set off the contract collar. This surprises Anos, so Lei explains that he would rather go all out for his final duel than let the royals dictate how it goes. Upon hearing this, Anos tells him to stop thinking about Shila and everyone else so they can finally go all out. The next moment, they resume the duel and cross swords at lightning speed, while everyone else tries to keep up with their movements. After minutes of trying to take each other's heads off, they both channel everything into one last charge, and Lei manages to send Anos' arm flying across the arena, but Anos still gets the drop on him. All of a sudden, they get transported to a dimensional prison, and the Watch Owl, who turns out to be Baron, explains how he spent every waking moment planning for this opportunity to finally end Anos. After Anos asks if he really thinks a pocket dimension is enough to stop him, Baron reminds him that the bracelet took a large amount of his magic before Lei chopped his arm off. He then summons Gaios and Idol to make sure Anos has no chance of surviving, but both their heads suddenly get sliced off by Lei, who then explains that Anos actually broke the contract collar with that strike. As they both prepare to attack, Baron opens a portal to show Lei where he kept Shila, but just as he tries to make a deal with them, Anos tells him to do whatever he wants with her, because they won't be falling into any of his traps again. The next moment, Lei jumps into the portal, so Anos decides to focus on defeating Baron. But he summons the Wall of Death Anos used to separate the realms 2,000 years ago. After sending it to attack him, he enters an absolute space only accessible to the spellcaster and sends the Death Wall to Lei as well. But Anos manages to shield them both despite barely having any magic left. When Lei asks him to make a sword with some of the magic he has left, Anos reminds him that a slight contact with the wall could end him. But Lei insists on helping out, so Anos sends him a sword. However, after only a couple of attacks, the sword breaks apart, so Anos shields him again while he apologizes for being useless. Anos tries to motivate him to try again, but he refuses until Shila wakes up and offers to help him. He immediately tries to stop her, but she tells him not to worry about it and uses what little life she has left to transform into a sword. She then reminds him of a promise he made to become the greatest swordsman years ago, so he uses that as fuel to fight again and manages to dispel the Wall of Death before slightly marking Baron's face. Despite this, Baron summons even more walls to attack them, but Anos suddenly grabs his shoulder, which surprises him since no one should be able to enter his absolute space. After showing him the mark on his face, Anos asks if he still feels optimistic, but he responds by trapping him in a death sphere and making a run for it. In a not-so-shocking turn of events, Anos destroys the sphere and summons his sword before slicing his legs clean off. Out of desperation, Baron starts unleashing every spell he ever mastered, but Anos easily neutralizes them before stabbing into his head and seeing that he is being controlled by a magic parasite. After he destroys it, they return to the arena but remain frozen in time. So Baron explains how he suddenly got attacked after their first conversation weeks ago. Anos then brings Gaios and Idol through and purifies their magic sources from the mind control before they spot Avos Dilhibia silently watching them from a corner. After he leaves, Anos tells Baron to focus on reviving Gaios and Idol, so he heads out and dispels the time stop spell. Upon seeing Lei spread out on the ground, the judges announce Anos as the winner, and after giving a speech about how powerful swords are, he thanks Guster for making his before noticing Lei tearing up and telling him not to worry about Shila. The next moment, Shila gets revived, and after running to hug her, Lei asks how it's possible. So Anos reminds him that her true form in the spirit world is a sword. He further explains that the speech he gave was to reignite people's belief in swords, which in turn gave Shila enough juice to come back. Sasha then walks out to present him with an award, but he ignores the sword and asks for a kiss. So she reluctantly gives him one on the cheek before rushing out to hide how embarrassed she feels. On way out, Anos runs into Misha, who then asks if he enjoyed the duel since he has been smiling this entire time. During the Great War, 2,000 years ago, Anos decided to pay a visit to humanity's capital city, but Kanon was waiting right outside with multiple barriers to stop him from entering. Despite all this, Anos easily walked right through all of them, so Kanon prepared for a fight, only to hear that Anos just wanted a way to foster peace between both of their people. Just as Kanon decided to hear him out, another human warrior named Jerga charged towards Anos, so he used a barrier to hold him back. However, after some of the human soldiers shared their magic with Jerga, he managed to break past the barrier and promised to send Anos back to his people in a body bag. The next moment, Anos stuck an arm into his chest and waited for him to drop before telling Kanon to come see him when they got tired of all the fighting. As soon as he left, Kanon rushed to Jerga's side and asked if blood was really the only way, so Jerga reminded him of all the people that lost their lives fighting demons before saying that the war cannot end without the death of Anos. Back in present day, Sasha is just heading out to school, but then she sees Anos and Misha walking together and asks why they ditched her. After Misha explains that she was learning how to cook from his mom, she gets upset, but Misha also claims that she spent eons trying to wake her up. Minutes later, they get to class and meet Menno, the new teacher taking over from Amelia. As they all gossip about what happened to Amelia, Menno tells them about an inter-academy event coming up in 3 weeks where selected representatives will take a trip to the Hero Academy in the human realm. Once again, they all start to gossip because they have never even seen the human realm. So Menno explains the history of humanity's heroes. She further tries to explain the difference between their main attack spells, but Anos takes over and explains it in detail until the ladies start losing it. Soon after this, he takes Lei and the girls out to train and starts by knocking Sasha out. After telling her to focus on controlling her eyes of destruction, he snaps Lei's ice sword into pieces and deep fries his organs with a nasty body shot, before telling him and Misha to get better as well. All of a sudden, he gets blindsided by a fog, but easily traces it to Misha before telling her how important it is to capitalize on her best skill. He then tells all of them to hone their skills, because the heroes they might meet in the human realm will likely be as powerful as Kanon. Later that day, he meets up with Baron, who then tells him that Gaius and Idol have been revived before warning him about the Hero Academy, because they have been training reincarnations of Kanon for some mysterious reason, despite the fact that there is no longer a need for war. Shortly after this, Anos takes Lei sword shopping in his weapons closet, because he hasn't been able to sit still without one. After he selects one, Anos tells him to test it on a statue, and after he fails, to leave a scratch. He explains that the sword's ability to cut is fully controlled by its wielder's willpower. He further explains that only his right-hand man during the Great War could ever control the sword, and admits that he gets the same feeling from back then whenever they fight. Upon hearing this, Lei claims he has always felt a connection to the past, but says he can't seem to remember anything about it. The next day, pack up and meet with the other student reps before being told that they have to make the trip to the human realm in 10 days to pass. While other groups discuss strategies to get there on time, Anos uses his teleportation skill to get them in front of the human capital city in seconds. Once inside, Misha, Lei, and Misha decide to take a look around, so Anos asks Sasha to follow him to the Hero Academy for a quick investigation. On the way there, she tells him to keep a low profile, and when he asks why, she reminds him of all the times he put their lives in danger during classes. He then commends her for not losing it every time he does something shocking, and says she really deserves the demon eyes. But she gets flustered and tries to avoid looking at him. As she continues squirming, he explains how amazing she is and makes her promise to use her eyes to protect everyone if there is ever a situation that stops him from doing it. Minutes later, they arrive at the Hero Academy, and despite all of Sasha's pleading, Anos casually forces the doors open, but a student named Eleanor shows up to tell them that non-students are not allowed on campus. After Anos explains that they are student reps from the Demon Academy and says they just wanted to look around, she offers to give them a tour of the place. Once inside, she explains how the Academy building was originally the Grand Castle used in defeating the Demon Lord, before taking them to a large library used to store records of Kanon's victory against the Demon Lord. Upon hearing this, Sasha loses it and tries to tell her that the Demon Lord actually sacrificed himself for peace. But Anos stops her and says humans need to think they won for the peace to last. He then asks Eleanor if she knows the name of the Demon Lord, and after she names Avos Stilhevia, he asks about the special class for reincarnations of Kanon, because they should know that their history is a lie. After she explains that there are currently 4 reincarnations of Kanon, Sasha gets confused, so Anos explains that he had 7 magic sources, meaning he could have multiple reincarnations, just as he tells her that the reincarnations should be able to remember how Kanon didn't actually defeat the Demon Lord. One of them, named Ledriano, shows up and tells Anos to accept that the Demon Lord was a weak loser who fell to Kanon's sword. After another reincarnation of Kanon named Laos shows up, Anos tells them to stop the cap, because there can only be one true reincarnation. Laos then decides to prove it by attacking, but he gets blasted away by the mere blink of Anos' eyelids. Despite clearly being exposed as a worthless weakling, he tries to attack again, but Ledriano stops him and apologizes to Anos. Moments later, Anos decides to head out with Sasha, but Eleanor suddenly tells him to stop looking for Kanon, because the real reincarnation is definitely not the same person he once knew, especially because he got murked by a fellow human. Over a week later, Mena finally shows up with the rest of the students, so Anos and the girls head inside for the conference meeting. However, a couple of minutes after this, they run into Rivest, a third-year representative, who immediately demands to know how they got there before everyone else. He goes as far as accusing Anos of cheating, but Anos simply tells him to be happy that they could make it in 2 days instead of trying to avoid the fact that he is obviously superior. After saying that they will never accept him as the Demon Lord, Rivest walks off with the rest of his mates for the conference class. Once they all get settled with representatives from the Hero Academy, an old geezer with duffel bags for eyes, named Diego, introduces himself as the headmaster and leader of the Kanon reincarnation class. After welcoming them to the academy, he decides to start off by making a representative from each academy display some of their magic. For the heroes, Ledriano decides to step in, while Rivest nominates himself for the Demon Academy. On getting to the stage, Ledriano uses his skill to restore a holy sword and demonstrates its strength, so Rivest decides to show them a demonization spell to show off. However, when his magic suddenly starts fluttering, Diego and Ledriano ask if this is the best the Demon Academy can offer. As they all start laughing at Rivest, Anos asks why they can't do without cheap tricks, because they clearly used a hidden spell that stops demonic spells from taking effect. With the snap of his fingers, he restores Rivest's magic, so he completes the demonization spell, but Anos still decides to rub it in by summoning a holy sword right in front of the entire class. Diego immediately calls it some sort of fake, but Anos explains that the holy magic they keep yapping about is just regular magic on a different wavelength. Diego then asks if he is the reincarnation of the Demon Lord, but a student from the academy tells them to take a look at his uniform to see that he is just an overpowered misfit who could never dream of becoming the great Demon Lord. Upon hearing this, Laos asks if there is anyone else from the academy stronger than him, so they all start arguing instead of accepting the obvious truth. Later that night, Baron shows up to Ano's room to share some information about Kanon's alleged murder. After saying that there is no mention of it in their records, he narrates a legend that claims he will return to save them from the reincarnated Demon Lord once again. The next moment, Sasha and Misha show up to take Anos to a festival celebrating Jerga, the hateful man that desperately wanted to end him during the Great War. After recalling how psychotic he was, Ano spots Lei with Misha and tries to walk over, but Sasha stops him because they seem to be enjoying each other's company, while they both continue watching. Lei stops shooting targets and asks Misha if she wants to try something else, but she apologizes for being absent and says she can't shake a weird feeling she got while in class with the student heroes. Lei then recalls how they almost started fighting and commends her on being able to keep her cool through it all. After also thanking her for saving his mom, he decides to buy her a necklace and specifically chooses one with 2 seashells before helping her put it on. On the way to a test the next day, all the girls notice it and start asking Misha where she got it, while Sasha tells Lei that she did some research and learned that the necklace is actually a more romantic version of an engagement ring passed down in human tradition for decades. Anos then explains that it started with 2 lovers who each wore a shell to remember each other before losing their lives in the Great War. Moments later, they meet up with Diego and his students for the test, but Anos notices that Eleanor didn't show up for the test. Diego then explains that they will be conducting the test in the Academy's lake, using their troop magic to try and overpower each other, when he suddenly tells Mena to get a proper team together instead of the weakling that threw a tantrum the other day. Rivest and the others lose it and take her aside to ask for a chance to stick it to the heroes. Anavis immediately tells them to stand down, since they are obviously too immature to handle a simple taunt. But Rivest tells him not to even think about representing them, because even if he is stronger, they need to redeem themselves as Menu's students by winning. Minutes later, they start setting up a base in the lake, so Anos takes the opportunity to ask Meno about Rivest. She then explains how he used to be a weakling who completely hated the Demon Lord until he learned that the guy's skill demons are known for was originally created by the Demon Lord to save as many lives as possible, instead of the destruction he became known for. Shortly after this, Rivest sends some of his teammates out to search for the heroes, but just a couple of minutes into it, they start complaining about not being able to use their abilities. After Ledriano, Laos, and Heine ambush the entire squad, Anos shares his demonic eyes with Menev, so she can see that they infused holy water into the lake to weaken Rivest and his teammates. In a matter of seconds, the 3 of them destroy Rivest's base and leave them all unconscious in the water. So Menev tells Diego to send rescue teams, but he tells her to wait a little longer because the rescue team had an issue on the way out. Thankfully, Anos easily pulls them out of the water, but when Meno gets close enough to heal Rivest, she notices a stigma on his chest that resists healing magic. She then accuses Diego of intentionally putting the students in danger, but he denies having any idea what she is talking about and blames her for selecting weak students. Once again, Anos offers to heal Rivest, but he refuses to accept the help, so Anos admits that his resolve is admirable before explaining that being stubborn in this situation will only harm Mena. After reluctantly accepting the help, Rivest hands over the gear Diego used to set them up and begs him to redeem their honor. Anos then meets up with the girls to take on a second test, but Heine and the others start teasing them about what happened in the lake and tell them to drain the water if they won't stop complaining about it. The next moment, Anos summons a pocket-friendly star and completely dries out the lake, so Diego decides to cancel the test, but Ledriano, Laos, and Heine jump in and tell him not to worry because they have already kept the last reincarnation of Kanon on standby. After checking to make sure Anos is the only one they have to worry about, they'd activate a barrier to recharge their magic and get fueled with hatred from a mysterious voice posing as the spirit of Kanon. Just then, Anos gets tired of waiting and decides to attack with another mini-sun. But as soon as it hits their barrier, Zeshia flies off and destroys it with a single attack. Anos then tells the others that entering the barrier might prove challenging since it could easily drain all their magic in seconds. After Misha offers to create castles within the barrier to keep their magic stable, Anos promises to protect her and uses teleportation magic to transport her inside with him. As soon as the barrier starts draining her life force, he refills it with his magic, so she starts creating the castles. But then Ledriano and the others show up to stop her. After Anos ignores them to ask for Zeshia's name, they try to capture Misha, but he grabs all their chains and blows them up. The next moment, Sasha attacks, but he still ends up without a single scratch while they get scattered across the lake floor. While Anos takes a look around and notices that none of them are the source of the barrier. Sasha introduces herself to Laz and tells him to stop focusing on Anos, because she can easily defeat him as well. Upon hearing this, Laz loses it and immediately unleashes every spell in his arsenal, but she quickly evades every attack and almost takes his head off with a powerful counter. After she snatches his magic gear, he chases after her at full speed and eventually manages to get it back. He then surrounds her with countless explosive orbs to stop her erratic flying, but as he charges in to land the final slice, arteries suddenly explode, causing him to crash before realizing that she infused his gear with dark magic before he got it back. Despite this, he tries to use the explosive orbs, but she destroys everyone in seconds and finishes him off with her destructive eyes. Around the same time, Heining manages to trap Lei with a gravity spell and summons a second holy sword to give him a healing-resistant stigma. But Lei easily breaks free and slices his arm clean off. This surprises the fun-sized rage baiter, but he still remains confident until Lei picks up the holy sword, which should be impossible for demons. Anos also gets shocked by this, but Heine nearly pisses himself and starts moving back while telling Lei that he was only messing around. After Lei dices him up like chopped liver, Anos tells Ledriano to stop playing dead, so gets back up and commends him for noticing. He then promises Anos a fair match, but suddenly gives Sasha the signal to attack. However, Anos easily evades both their attacks and slams Sasha into the ground, so Ledriano tells her to stand back so they can guise. The next moment, they start absorbing magic from every other student in the academy and the regular citizens, and suddenly become 10 times stronger than before. Eventually, though, Anos creates a barrier strong enough to block their attacks and uses the same guise spell to obtain magic from the girls. With this, he easily counters every attack and almost blows Ledriano's arm off, leaving him in a state of shock as he never expected one guy to have more magic than the entire human realm. After Anos explains that the only human to ever use guise to its full effect was Kanon, Ledriano loses it and gets possessed by the evil voice posing as Kanon. The same voice also starts brainwashing the girls, but Misha manages to snap them out of it and decides to help Anos. However, when he sees Sasha preparing to use a powerful spell, he tells Misha to get far away and warns Sasha not to use it because she might not survive it. The next moment, she changes in and stabs herself in the heart, triggering a source explosion that covers the entire academy in a blinding light. Surprisingly, Anos survives without a scratch, but Sasha suddenly shows up again to repeat the spell, so he grabs her source to end it all. Just then, Eleanor calls out to him and says she is the only one who can stop Sasha. So Anos tells Misha to go see her while he stops Sasha from exploding. Minutes later, Misha finds the shrine, but Diego shows up as well and unleashes a holy blast that knocks her down before repeatedly stabbing her and admitting that he always planned to send them all to the Grim Reaper. Just as he tries to stab her source, Anos literally blows his back out and seals Misha in a pocket dimension to heal her before grabbing Diego and burning him from the inside out. After reviving him, he demands to know the real reason behind their hatred for demons and uses the demonization spell from the other day to reveal Diego's true form. The next moment, Diego brainwashes all the students to simultaneously blow up their sources, but Anos freezes time to stop the explosion and rips his source out. After explaining how Kanon would have never supported such a psychotic obsession with bloodshed, he crushes Diego's source and carries Misha into the shrine to see Eleanor, who then claims to be the embodiment of magic. Before trying to explain in more detail, she asks Anos to free her from the orb, so she can stop everyone on the surface from exploding. So he shatters the orb and restores her clothes to keep freaks like you from seeing the good stuff. After deactivating the self-destruct spell Diego used on everyone, Eleanor releases the dark matter covering countless clones scattered across the shrine and explains that they were all created to preserve the hatred Commander Jerga felt towards demons. Upon realizing that it's why Sasha resurfaced after literally exploding into nothingness, Anos asks how Jerga managed to pull it off, so she decides to show him a piece of memory from his original magic source. Back then, Kanon had just returned from helping Anos sacrifice himself, and after learning of Jerga's plans to destroy all demons, he spoke up against it and ended up with a sword in his guts. After this painful betrayal, Kanon was never seen or heard from, as he seemingly paused his own reincarnation just to avoid coming back as a human. Eleanor then explains how Jerga split his original magic source into two to create Ask, the version of guise that they used to receive magic from others, and her, so she could create more brain-dead clones that would train as soldiers in the academy for Jerga's master plan. After taking a look around at the clones, she spent the last 2 millennia sending to their demise. Eleanor begs Anos to destroy her, because none of them would ever forgive her. However, Zeshia's clones suddenly call out to her and beg Anos to save her. Just as he agrees to help, a new Diego shows up demanding to know what he plans to do with her. Anos then prepares to finish him off a second time, but the last 3 demon emperors show up along with Avos de Libya. As he walks over to Kanon's legendary holy sword, Diego tells him not to bother trying because a demon would never be able to touch it. But Avos easily pulls it out and uses a fun-sized black hole to suck Diego and his soldiers in before facing Anos. After blocking his attack, he tells Anos to accept fate because nothing can be done to stop him at this point. At that moment, another Diego clone gets projected across the entire human realm to inform everyone of the legend they passed down over the last 2,000 years. While he promises to make sure the Demon Lord gets defeated again, Avos and the last 3 demon emperors also project themselves across the demon realm and order the people to prepare for war, because it is finally their turn to make humanity suffer. Shortly after this, Anos meets up with Baron and the other emperors, who then tell him that the demon army has already mobilized to attack the human realm by sunrise. After they asked for his orders, Sasha and Misha and everyone else on Anos' side show up to help, so he tells them to get some rest because they will be heading out by sunrise. Early the next day, Lei finds Misha staring out with a worried look on her face, so he takes half of the necklace from her to symbolize his proposal and promises to come back no matter what happens. Minutes later, they all meet up with Anos, who then explains that they are to stop both the demon and human army from engaging each other so he can deal with Avos and stop this war from happening. Shortly after this, Sasha and Misha track down the first demon army troop and want to decide to use the power of sisterhood to hold them back. Lei and Misha handle business by beating the brakes off any demon soldier that tries to pass them. Around the same time, Anos sends Baron and the other emperors to deal with Avos' main force, and after helping them take down most of the soldiers, he heads to Avos' castle to finally stop him. However, the moment he gets there, Misha calls out to tell him that Lei suddenly went missing. At the same time, Anos hears that Baron has already captured the last 3 emperors working for Avos, so he takes some time to think before taking off and stopping Avos, right before he crosses over into the human realm. They immediately clash swords, but after spotting a necklace on his neck, Anos grabs it and takes a step back before asking Kanon why he reincarnated as a demon. The next moment, Lei drops the mask and asks how he figured it out. So Anos starts with the night he got Misha the necklace. The only way he could have known what the necklace meant is if he had lived as a human, since demons never learned about it. The next clue was the fact that Kanon has 7 magic sources, which would explain why he only combined 6 of them with the sources of 6 of the emperors, as he still needed the last one to maintain his immortality. After listing out all the other subtle clues that slowly started adding up, Anos asks why he is going this far, so Lei admits that he was wrong to trust humans. After Jerga's betrayal, he realized that they would try to attack demonkind again after Anos' reincarnation, so he decided to use his sword's ability to control destiny to rewrite demon history and return as the demon lord in Anos' place. This causes Anos to realize that he intends to let humans unalive him yet again, just to make them satisfied with the illusion that they have finally gotten the revenge Jerga spent centuries planning for. When he asks why, Lei reminds him that he is still a hero, which means he has to atone for the damage his people caused, as well as repay Anos' sacrifice by being the one paying the ultimate price for once. Upon hearing this, Anos shows him the necklace he gave Misha and reminds him that lovers only share it at the point of death to make sure their souls find each other after reincarnation. He then tells Lei to take it by force if he really wants to reunite with Misha after the sacrifice. So Lei charges in for the epic duel they have both been craving for years. In a matter of seconds, the sky gets littered with explosions as they both unleash every spell in the book to win. After a couple more minutes of attempted murder, Anos grabs his last magic source and crushes it, causing Lei to take a nasty nosedive into the ground. Despite this, he summons yet another sword to continue fighting, but in a surprising turn of events, Anos holds back and allows him to stab right through his magic source. As Lei tries to wrap his head around what just happened, he swaps their clothes and takes up the Demon Lord mask before the wall falls apart, revealing them to both the demon and human armies. After telling the demons to retreat and wait for yet another reincarnation, Anos fades into nothingness, so Lei takes a moment of silence to mourn yet another sacrifice before sheathing his sword and telling the human soldiers to head back as well. All of a sudden, Diego loses it and calls him a fraud before ordering all the Zeshiya clones to activate self-destruct mode. Eleanor immediately tries to stop him, but he continues yelling curses at the demon army until his soul gets drained out and activates an immensely powerful version of the guy's spell that revives Jerga as the embodiment of all the hatred he passed down throughout the years. Upon seeing this, Lei tries to attack, but Jerga easily overpowers him, so Sasha and Misha decide to take the risk of merging together just to stop him from setting off the Zeshia clones. Lei also joins forces with Misha again to stop him, but despite all their efforts, Jerga still manages to set off the clones. Just as the explosion engulfs everything in sight, Anos rewinds time by a few seconds to deactivate the spell, and after the clones all fall back to the ground. He explains how Lei's final strike was meant to trigger an instant reincarnation powerful enough to get him back in time. Naturally, this leaves Jerga in a state of shock, but he suddenly gets excited again and says it's the perfect opportunity to finish him off with his bare hands. The next moment, Lei joins Anos to attack him, but Jerga easily blasts them both out of the sky. He then starts draining all of humanity of their magic, so Anos tells the girls to sing again so he can regain his full powers, while they all turn the greatest battle of all creation into a musical. All the other soldiers on both sides join forces for the first time ever to help Anos and Lei stop Jerga. With all the positive energy replenishing his magic, Anos attacks again and starts countering every strike, but Jerga still refuses to accept peace, so Lei deletes his legs to stop him from moving. He still manages to pull himself back up for one last attack, so Lei and Anos take off and combine their strength for one final attack. After they both pierce into his skull, Anos rewinds time to find the seashell necklace he gave his wife, just to help him finally feel a sense of peace before his soul gets erased from existence. Right then, Misha and Sasha separate and rush into his arms, so he comforts them while Lei reunites with Misha. Moments later, Anos finds Eleanor and shares some of his magic to make sure she can never get exploited again. After telling her to focus on the thousands of Zeshia clones she now has to take care of, they head back to the demon realm. Later that evening, Anos returns home and receives a warm welcome from Isabella and Guster, who then notice Eleanor and ask if she is the latest member of his harem. Upon hearing this, Sasha jokes about how they might think her clones are their offspring, but both Guster and Isabella take this a little too seriously and become convinced that Anos turned her into a breeding machine. Since everyone else reincarnated, what the heck happened to Anos' right-hand man, and is he finally going to have enough time to smash the twins? Comment part 2 to find out, and don't forget to turn on post notifications after subscribing to make sure you never miss any of our recaps.